For more than 6 decades, the world has known Tom Jones as one of the most electrifying voices in popular music. He has sold over 100 million records, received a knighthood from the Queen, and built a career that stretches from the pubs of South Wales to the stages of Las Vegas. But behind the fame and the accolades, Tom Jones has carried a friendship that shaped him more deeply than any hit single ever could. His bond with Elvis Presley was more than two icons crossing paths. It was a brotherhood built on music, trust, and a connection so rare that Priscilla Presley said she had never seen anything quite like it. After years of sharing fragments of that story in interviews and on concert stages, the full picture of what Elvis truly meant to Tom is only now coming into focus. Long before Tom Jones ever set foot inside a recording studio, he was a boy named Thomas John Woodward, growing up in the mining town of Pontypridd in Wales. His father worked the coal pits, his mother kept the house, and young Tom, diagnosed with tuberculosis at the age of 12, spent more than a year confined to his bed with nothing but a radio for company. That radio changed the course of his life. Through the crackling signal of the BBC Light program, he heard a voice coming out of Memphis, Tennessee that stopped him cold. It was Elvis Presley singing Heartbreak Hotel. Tom later said the song had an immediate and profound effect on everything that followed. He scraped together whatever money he could to buy every Presley record and played them in the privacy of his bedroom, studying the way Elvis shifted between tenderness and raw power in a single phrase. He never tried to copy him. He knew even then that he had to find his own voice. But Elvis Presley was the spark that lit it. By the age of 16, Tom had dropped out of school, married his childhood sweetheart Linda Trenchard, and become a father. He worked as a builder's laborer and as a door-to-door vacuum salesman by day, while singing in the working men's clubs of South Wales at night. He told his mates in Pontypridd that he would meet Elvis Presley one day. They laughed him off. Nobody from their corner of Wales met Elvis Presley. That confidence would take another decade to prove right, but Tom never let go of it. In early 1965, a song called It Is Not Unusual turned Tom Jones from a pub singer into a star almost overnight. Within months, he was on a plane to Los Angeles for the first time in his life, walking through the gates of Paramount Studios in Hollywood to discuss a song for a film. And that is where this story truly begins. Someone at the studio told Tom that Elvis was on the lot that day, filming Paradise Hawaiian Style, and that he wanted to meet him. Tom could barely process the words. He walked onto the film set and saw Elvis sitting in a helicopter between takes. Elvis spotted him, climbed down, and started walking toward him, singing Tom's own ballad with these hands, with every lyric perfect. Tom stood frozen. Elvis, the man whose records he had memorized as a sick boy in a terraced house in Wales, was serenading him on a Hollywood soundstage. They shook hands, and Elvis asked him point blank how he managed to sing the way he did. Tom told him he was partly to blame, that he had grown up studying those records from Memphis. Elvis laughed and admitted that when he first heard What's New Pussycat on the radio, he assumed it was a black singer. Tom found that deeply ironic, because he had thought the exact same thing about Elvis when Heartbreak Hotel first came through the kitchen radio in Pontypridd years earlier. That mutual recognition, two men whose voices carried the unmistakable influence of black gospel and rhythm and blues, became the foundation of something neither of them saw coming. A genuine friendship between supposed rivals. Over the next 3 years, they stayed in touch across oceans and time zones. But it was 1968 that cemented their bond for good. By then, Elvis had spent the better part of a decade grinding through forgettable Hollywood movies, his live performing career completely dormant. Colonel Tom Parker, his notoriously controlling manager, had kept him locked into film contracts. Elvis wanted desperately to get back on stage, but years away from a live audience had shaken his confidence. So when Tom Jones opened a residency at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, Elvis made a decision that defied his own management. Colonel Parker had explicitly warned against attending another entertainer's show, arguing it made Elvis look like a fan instead of a king. Elvis ignored him. He showed up at the Flamingo with his entourage, took a ringside table, and watched Tom Jones tear the room apart. When the show ended, Elvis rose to his feet and led the standing ovation. He went backstage, embraced Tom, and said words that would quietly alter the direction of music history. He said, "You lit a fire in me tonight. I'm going to tell that old man I need to get back on the road." The old man was Colonel Parker. The very next day, Elvis picked up the phone and demanded that Parker arrange a live comeback instead of signing him up for another round of indifferent films. Within a year, Elvis Presley was headlining the International Hotel in Las Vegas, launching the legendary concert residency that would define the last chapter of his career. And it was Tom Jones who had given him the nerve to do it. From that point forward, whenever both men were in Las Vegas at the same time, they were practically inseparable. They spent entire nights in hotel suites, singing gospel music until sunrise. Tom later said he mostly listened during those sessions because Elvis knew more gospel songs than anyone he had ever met. Tom recalled that Elvis Presley was really a gospel singer at heart, and that Elvis heard that same thing in him. They bonded over the music that had shaped them both, the spirituals and hymns that ran deeper than any pop chart. They vacationed together in Hawaii, sitting on the beach side by side with guitars, singing without an audience, without cameras, without a single recording to show for it. Tom described those afternoons as two kids who were best friends, just doing what they loved most. Priscilla Presley later told Tom something that stayed with him for the rest of his life. She said that when Elvis was around Tom, he became a completely different person, happier, more relaxed, more himself. Priscilla told Tom she had never seen that side of Elvis before, and that he was so pleased to have someone around who really understood what he was doing musically. For a man surrounded by an entourage of bodyguards and hangers-on, Elvis had found in Tom something far rarer than fame could provide: an equal. That closeness made the years that followed unbearably difficult. Around 1969, Elvis asked Tom a question that revealed a darkness growing behind the spotlight. "What drugs do you take to stay sane?" Tom told him the truth. He did not take any. That was exactly how he stayed sane. Elvis seemed genuinely surprised. He admitted to using uppers to get on stage and downers to sleep afterward, that he had been leaning on pills and prescriptions to survive the relentless pressure of being Elvis Presley. Tom watched over the following years as his friend drifted further into a cycle of substance abuse, physical decline, and isolation inside the walls of Graceland in Memphis. He could see it happening. They talked about it openly. But Tom never pushed or lectured. Their friendship had always been built on mutual respect, and Tom was not the kind of man to preach to someone he admired. By the mid-1970s, the decline was visible to anyone paying attention. Elvis appeared bloated and exhausted during concert performances. The explosive energy that had once electrified arenas was flickering. Tom reflected years later that it was the drugs that destroyed Elvis. Not fame, not heartbreak, not loneliness. The chemicals. He was a basic guy who loved music, Tom said. It was just a shame the drugs caught up with him. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley was found unresponsive on a bathroom floor at Graceland. He was 42 years old. The friendship that had begun with a song on a Hollywood film set 12 years earlier was over. Tom Jones never stopped talking about him. In interview after interview, spanning decade after decade, he returned to those same memories. The gospel sessions, the laughter backstage, the Hawaiian afternoons with guitars and no audience. In 2015, at the age of 75, Tom recorded a cover of Gillian Welch's song Elvis Presley Blues for his album Long Lost Suitcase. In the music video, Tom sits alone in a dim, empty room watching old film footage of Elvis projected against a crumbling wall, photographs of his friends scattered across the floor. He was all alone in a long decline, Tom sings, and every word carries the weight of someone mourning not a legend but a friend. Jerry Schilling, one of Elvis's closest confidants for decades, once said that if there was one artist Elvis truly called a friend and spent the most time with, it was Sir Tom Jones. Elvis was always cautious about who he let get close, Schilling explained. But he was inspired by Tom, and they became very good friends. Now 85 years old and still commanding stages around the world, Tom Jones carries that friendship with him into every performance. At a recent concert, he told the audience about the night Elvis took him to see Chuck Berry perform live. Midway through the show, Elvis leaned over and whispered that Berry was the real king of rock and roll. Tom smiled when he shared that story, the kind of smile people wear when they are remembering someone they deeply loved. Their friendship was never defined by competition, jealousy, or who sold more records. It was two men from opposite ends of the earth who heard the same thing in each other's voices and recognized it instantly. A shared musical language that existed long before they ever shook hands on that Paramount soundstage, and it outlasted everything that followed, even death. What is your favorite Tom Jones and Elvis moment? Do you think their friendship changed the course of music history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, subscribe for more untold stories from the world of music legends.